Hey, if you'd like to earn CEUs for this webinar, join the Safeopedia community at the link in the description below. Now, on to the show.
And so to close things out, I couldn't think of a better person to bring to the stage to wrap things up for us on day 2. Dr. Megan Tranter is joining us this afternoon. She is a ESG executive with a career that takes her across continents and industries, and she's held top global EH&S jobs in some of the biggest companies in the world. And now she's helping people build their brilliant futures and just contributing back to the safety community. So I am honored to introduce Megan this afternoon to take over.
All right, thank you, Scott. And hello, everyone. Glad you can be here, especially in the afternoon on a Wednesday. And then also if you get to watch this during the replays, I hope you really enjoy it as well. So I'm going to share my screen and let's get going. Let's see if I do this properly. Yeah, I think we've got it. We've got it there.
Looks
so
good.
Again, yeah, you can see it?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So big warm welcome to all of you. As Scott said, my name is Dr. Megan Tranter. You can find me on LinkedIn at Dr. Megan Tranter, actually, and love to connect with you there anytime. So I know that this presentation that you're going to see today doesn't look like one that you'll normally see at a safety conference. There won't be any photos of construction workers wearing hard hats and high-vis vests. You're not going to see any stock photos of people sitting around at a conference table having a safety committee meeting. And that's because I'm here to take you through a journey of self-discovery so you can think about how you design your career. And I'd love to encourage you at this beginning point to grab a piece of paper and a pen, or open your phone up to the notes page, or open your computer. Well, your computer's on because we're watching this online, but in whatever way that you can make notes whenever we're at that stage. So let me share a little story and a little journey about me as a safety professional. You see, I didn't just wake up one day with a PhD leading global teams for some of the biggest brands in the world. I actually started my career as an entry-level government employee, so the equivalent of an OSHA inspector in a country town in Australia, hence the accent. My annual pay was a big old 27,000 Australian dollars a year. And there I was, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, right out of university, looking probably all of 15 years old and standing at a mighty 4'11". I can't imagine what the owner of the radiator repair shop thought when I turned up and started talking about lead. Well, actually I can. He kindly told me to bleep off. Or let's think about the farmer who was, let's say, not showing nice country hospitality when I had a chat with him about how his pesticide spray had drifted onto a neighbour's clothes that were hanging out to dry. Or let's not forget the discussions about trenching and shoring on some of big construction sites when they were building a new bridge. Yeah, that didn't go down too well either. So the question becomes, how do you go from being an individual contributor and very technical into building global strategies, meeting with politicians and their staff in Washington, D.C., and being part of a launch to improve safety on roads at the United Nations in New York City? Well, I would tell you it's a little bit of luck, but there's also a lot of self-reflection on who I am as a person and what lights me up, trying to figure out what my superpowers are, and a heck of a lot of risk-taking. And I know for us in the safety world, we talk about risk management and trying to mitigate risks, but sometimes in your career, You just need to take a few risks. Because the reality is, no one is going to give it to you on a golden platter. You need to understand yourself. You need to understand what makes you tick, what you actually want, and then chart that path to get there. And I'm not here to tell you whether your career or the path that you're taking is right or wrong. That's totally up to you to decide. But I would like this session to be a bit different in so much as you can take the time and the space to think through what you want out of your career. And the framework that I'm going to share with you can be applied to any stage of your career, whether you're early, whether you're in the midpoint of your career, or perhaps you're even reaching a stage where you're thinking about your legacy. It's never too late to take that deep breath in and actually think about this. Because what I've found is that the closer you can match your career to your values and your strengths, the more fulfilling and enjoyable it will be, even during the tough times, because your work can give you energy and not take it away. So let's have a little bit of real talk for a minute. Let's talk about this beautiful profession of safety, shall we? And listen, I'm sure you have your own experiences. I'm sure you'll have your own points of view about how beautiful it is. But there's two pieces of research that piqued my interest recently. First of all, there was some research that came out from the ILO, the International Labour Organization, which was published towards the end of 2023. And it talked about health and safety careers, including things like competency and capability frameworks, things like certifications, ethics, and even how to enter the profession. And the reality is that I'm sure we've all entered the profession different ways. You know, for myself, I came through an academic route. I studied at university and then began working. Others of you may have started through crafts or trades, or maybe you were a lawyer or a doctor or a nurse or a chemist or an engineer, and you've moved your way into safety. So there's so many different ways and to come into the profession. And I think that this gets acknowledged through this ILO research paper. The second interesting paper that I found, it actually was published in 2024, so this year, was titled Understanding the Blues of Safety Professionals. And I'm pretty sure they weren't talking about the color. Doesn't sound great, does it? And honestly, I was a bit worried when I read it. And if you like, I can send you the link of both of these. If you let me know, we can send them later on. But basically, in summary, these papers paint a little bit of a troubled profession where safety professionals struggle to be understood and valued by their organisation. We have old and misleading frameworks and models that continue to get used and misused. And all of this has led to the perception that safety is a bureaucratic nightmare of checking the boxes. Now, of course, I know that all of you don't feel this way. And I certainly myself don't feel this way either. But I think it is helpful to understand what people are thinking about the profession, both if you're in the profession and also what colleagues might think about it. I'm also sure that you're not the one building those boring safety programs. And better still, I'm sure that when you meet people for the first time, they ask you what you do with such excitement. And when you tell them, they want to keep talking to you for hours afterwards. Now, am I right? Because believe me, when I go to barbecues, that's not quite my experience. So, what can you do? I said that we were going to spend our session today taking a journey on self-discovery. So let's do it. First of all, before we start, I want you to remember that there are so many permutations and combinations of roles in the safety profession. No one is the best or is more prestigious than another. And just because I spent my career in these massive companies doesn't mean that the role was somehow better than a role in a small company, in an NGO, or in a government. I guess what I'm really trying to say is that you get to decide what your career is, what you want it to be, and what you want to do. And there's no judgment. It's all you. I don't know if I told you, I don't think I have because I'm only just meeting a few of you. I actually became a certified yoga teacher in June this year. And don't worry, we're not going to start doing any downward dogs. But for those of you who are interested in yoga, you'll know that it's not just about striking a pose, but it's about self-awareness, balance, and stretching your boundaries. And that's exactly what we're going to do today with your career. We're going to explore the stretches you need to make in your professional life, the balance to achieve, and the boundaries to push to truly grow. So I'm going to share a framework with you that I use in my program, which is actually called Design Your Brilliant Future. And it's actually a 4-part framework called the 4 A's. And here's the way I think about it. The first A is awakening your inspiration. The second A is adventure down different paths. The third A is aspiring to the new. And the fourth A is activating an action plan. Do you like what I did with that? I'm trying to make it a little bit of fun so that when we think about our career and when we think about our future, and especially as we're building a brilliant future, that we can have fun with it and it doesn't have to be quite so serious. So today for our closing session here for day 2 of Safety Connect, we're going to move through the first A, which is awakening your inspiration. So I want you to think about a concept, and you might have heard of this concept. It's called the hero's journey. So picture yourself as the protagonist of your own epic tale. And maybe you can tell with this that I did work for quite a large studio. So I am at a stage of my career now where I'm having a little bit of fun, and certainly working at a studio that makes movies and TV series does teach you to think a little bit differently as well. So you're the protagonist of your own epic tale. Now, when you think about it, every great adventure begins with a moment that sparks the quest. So here's what I want you to think about. And I mentioned earlier, I wanted you to get your pen and paper, or I wanted you to grab your phone or open your laptop somewhere where you can write down some thoughts. This session is not about you spending the next 45 minutes just listening to me talk to you. It's actually about you thinking for yourself. So we are going to have some moments as well where you actually get to think and reflect about yourself. So the question I've got for you is, what is the spark for you that sparks a quest? And the quest is your career. So ask yourself, what brings you happiness and a sense of accomplishment? What brings you energy? What really energizes you and makes you look forward to each new day? Because together we're going to uncover your unique purpose, because this is the first step in your personal adventure. So let's first of all start with why. And you can see on the slide, I've titled this, Know Thyself, Safety Leader. You've got to know who you are in order to build the most amazing career that you can ever have. Because when you start with your why, you create a strong foundation that guides your decisions, your actions, and your interactions. And the clarity that you get by understanding your why helps you stay focused on what truly matters, even when you're faced with challenges. And, you know, believe me, having worked in safety for decades, it's not always easy. And I'm sure this will resonate with you as well. Some days you have the most brilliant days. You feel like you're on top of the world. Everything is just going awesome. And then the next day, not so much. But the point about understanding yourself and understanding your why is that when you build your career around your why, It just makes everything so much easier. And as a safety professional, I often talk about safety professionals as being one of the most noble, beautiful professions out there. And actually, I was on a podcast this morning, and the first question the podcast interviewer asked me was, do you really believe that safety is a beautiful profession? And I said, I truly do. And I truly also believe it's a noble profession. But in order for you to feel that way as well about the profession, you need to have a clear sense of purpose of what drives your commitment to create safer workplaces and promoting a culture of well-being. So I'd love if you did grab that pen and paper or open up the notes on your phone or whatever way you like to write. And I'm going to ask you a question, and then we're going to set the clock for 2 minutes. And by the way, I'm very good in silence, so we'll let the 2 minutes pass while you write this down. And what I want you to do is think about a time when you felt truly energized and accomplished at work. And I want you to ask yourself questions like, what were you doing when you felt truly energized and accomplished? Who were you with? And what impact did you make? And here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of 3 pivotal moments or 3 times, and just take 2 minutes and write that down. So I'm going to set the clock. Got my phone in front of me. So I'm going to set, oh, here we are. Here we go. Sorry, I should have had this set up before, but I'm going to set us a little timer for 2 minutes. It may not be enough time for you, and it may not be enough time for deep reflection, but remember, what we're doing here is an introduction to help you design your brilliant future. You probably want to put more time into the reflection to get to the really good stuff, but let's start with 2 minutes. And again, think about the times where you felt truly energized and accomplished at work. What were you doing? Who were you with? What impact did you make? Okay, off you go.
Megan, we have a few people asking for the 4 A's again.
Oh, the 4 A's, yes. Hang on. The 4 A's are awaken your inspiration, and that's what we're going to do today. The second A is adventure down different paths. The third A is aspire to the new. And then the fourth A is activate an action plan. Okay, our 2 minutes are up. Hopefully you were able to write a few thoughts down, but we're going to keep on moving because I want you to get the most value out of our time here today. So now what I want you to do is take a look at those 3 pivotal moments that you wrote down. And we're going to write down your why. Because this isn't any session, as I mentioned earlier. We're not going to be looking at pictures of hard hats and safety and high-vis vests. In this session, I want you to be bold. I want you to write a statement that reflects who you are, what drives you, and the impact that you want to make. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to share it with other people, the hundreds of other people who are here or who are watching later on. This is only for you. And this is why this session is so important, because when you think about your career, this is all about you. It is one of those times that you can be selfish. And I know that as safety professionals, we are often humble and selfless. But this is a time that you can think about yourself and what lights you up. So if you see on the slide, I've put a few examples. Perhaps you could use those as a starting point, and you can see the way that it's structured. And again, nothing has to be perfect. If you don't like these ways that I've formatted them, you also don't have to use it. But what I'm asking you to do for, again, the next 2 minutes is to write down your why. So I'm going to start my timer again. Okay, beautiful. We're at 2 minutes. So again, just remember, if you haven't had time to write it down, that's okay. Remember that this session here is on demand. You can come back and watch it again if you're looking for inspiration for some of the choice of words. So now let's go back to our framework. And when we think about our hero, remember in our hero's journey, every hero needs a set of guiding principles, and your core values act as those guiding principles or your moral compass. Those values influence your choices and the directions that you take in your life and in your career. And core values are really fundamental beliefs that dictate behavior and action. They serve as a foundation for making decisions, establishing priorities, and guiding our actions both personally and professionally. Now, when you think about core values, they're normally deeply ingrained and often reflect what is really important to an individual or an organization. And I'm sure your company has a list of certain types of core values, whether they're called leadership behaviors or core values. But what I've done here is actually put a list together of some core values. Is it the be all and end all? I don't know. I don't think so. But certainly there's a lot here that perhaps some of them might resonate with you, and it's good food for thought. So I hope you're tracking with me here in understanding why it's so important to know your core values in order to build a career that is rewarding and fulfilling. Now, remember that this session today isn't going to go and tell you to go and get your CSP or your CIH. We're going to go deeper than that, because when your core values are aligned with what you do every day, that's when the magic happens in your career. So here's what I want you to do now. Go back to your piece of paper or your phone or your tablet or your computer. Remember a few minutes ago, you wrote down those 3 significant moments or pivotal moments that impacted you. Have you got them there? All right. Now what I want you to think about is how you felt during those significant moments. And listen, if you're like me and you prefer to think more than feel, I've got you. I totally feel the same. But trust me, one of the things that I've learned in building a brilliant career and getting a lot of job satisfaction is that sometimes you do have to feel things. And this element of thinking about your core values is really important in order to get this connection between the different elements of who you are as a person and how you build that career. So here's what I want you to do now is take a look at those values that I'm showing you here on the screen. And hopefully they're not too small. Hopefully you can zoom them out or have a look at them. Actually, let me go back to the previous screen. We'll take the number 10 off. What I want you to do is choose no more than 10 of them that align with the feelings and the experiences that you identified earlier. And I just want you to take a minute to do this. You know, it doesn't have to be long. And actually, probably the faster you can do it, the better. No more than 10. Okay, how are you doing? Are you tracking with me? So you've got your list of 10 core values, right? So let's keep going. So on the screen now, I'm going to show you how you can bring together those values with your significant moments. And you don't have to do anything right now. Perhaps you can come back and watch this session again on the recording, and you can see how everything comes together. So if we do connect the dots, what we're trying to do here is to link together those outcomes or those impacts with the values that were important to you. So let's quickly think about a couple of examples. So let's say we've got Frankie, who's a safety specialist, and Frankie really values order, stability, and preparedness. Can you imagine how Frankie would feel when things are disorganized, done on the fly, and last minute? Yeah, probably not great, right? But then let's take a look at Freddie, who also happens to be a safety specialist. And he's really into, or he really values adventure, excitement, and spontaneity. Freddie is probably not bothered in the least. And honestly, he probably loves figuring out how to solve problems at the last minute. Now, it doesn't mean that Frankie or Freddie were wrong. It just means that they have different core values. And if they can link their core values with their career, it just makes it a heck of a lot more fulfilling. So let's talk about personality traits now in step 3 of this. Now, I want to give a disclaimer. I am a doctor, but I'm a doctor of philosophy and I'm not a psychologist. So I can't give you the ins and outs of various personality tests, except to say, in the business context, I've found it extremely to know who I am as a person. And honestly, I also find it helpful to know what my colleagues are as well. And maybe you've experienced this in your workplaces where you actually get to complete some of these assessments, whether it's 16 personalities, which is very similar to Myers-Briggs. It probably is Myers-Briggs. Things like StrengthsFinder or DISC personality, and each has its own elements and things that it's looking at. But certainly they're very interesting in at least beginning to explore and understand what makes you tick and who you are as a person. So just like your core values and your personal purpose provides that strong foundation, your unique personality traits add another crucial layer to understanding yourself and shaping your career path. So the way I like to think of it is to think of your personality as your unique superpower, and it distinguishes you from anyone else. So the combination of those traits make you who you are, and it equips you with the tools so you can navigate life's challenges and really seize opportunities. Now, these traits, they're not just random characteristics. They're the essence of your professional persona. So whether you're a natural born leader, a creative thinker, or perhaps you're a detail-oriented planner, your personality traits are invaluable assets to your team and to your company, and also, quite frankly, to yourself. So for the purpose of our session here today, I want to share some examples of tools, and I've listed them up on the screen that might be helpful to you. And maybe you've already got an assessment of these. Maybe you can dig through your computer or your folders and find what your assessment was. Or in your own time, you actually can do a lot of these assessments online, and some of them are free and some of them are not. So just be aware of that as well. All 3 that I've gone on here are not free, but some of them are. So we won't have time to actually go through them. I think in a different world and in a longer session, we'd actually be able to go through your assessments and have you reflect on what it tells you about yourself. But I really would encourage you to spend the time, if you haven't already done this, just to get to know yourself better. And listen, if you don't like them or you don't agree with them, then that's cool too. I don't think they're the holy grail, but they do add a little extra context. And when you know yourself better, it helps you to become more resilient. It helps you to navigate challenges. And also it helps you to influence better in the role that you have as a safety professional. So for instance, I know that with the Myers-Briggs, I am an INTJ, introvert. Now I've got to remember it, introvert, intuitive, thinking and judging. Actually, this one is quite rare for women to have this trait. Under 16 personalities, it's called the architect. And what I've learned about myself in understanding that I'm an INTJ is that I need time to myself to re-energize. But I also love connecting pieces of the puzzle and strategizing. So my point really is here that if you know yourself, you can look for roles and a career that fits best with who you are. That's the purpose of this. So let's talk about skills a little bit, because maybe you're feeling like we've gone a little bit too much into the woo-woo, and my yoga teacher training has taken away all of my science and all of my belief in skills and experience, which is not the case. I'm going to bring us back now to the final step of the first A in the Design Your Brilliant Future framework. Because if you want to have an impact, you do need to have the right skills and the right experiences. So digging into this topic might also help you in setting out your professional development plan so that you can discuss your career aspirations with your manager. And that's super important these days. It's about taking agency and ownership over your own career. There are some pieces in the work context that you can seek support from your manager and your company to continue your professional development. And I'm sure if you've registered for Safety Connect and other conferences and other courses and training, that's your commitment to yourself, is that you do that because you want to keep improving your skills and experience. And it's no different when you're thinking about how to design your brilliant future. You do have to have skills and experience to be able to fill the needs of a job. But let's for a minute go back to that concept of the hero's journey that we talked about a little bit earlier. So if you think about any hero that you admire, what makes them extraordinary? It's not just their innate qualities, but also their commitment to continuous learning and growth. And building your brilliant career is also about embracing that mindset. If you develop new skills and gain new experiences, you're equipping yourself to tackle new challenges and confidently seize opportunities. So here's what I want you to do. Take a moment to reflect on how your skills and your experiences have contributed to your career development. Think about things like, what are some areas where you've seen significant growth in yourself? And how did they prepare you for the next round of challenges that you faced in your career? And what you can then do is build on those foundations to continue your professional advancement. Again, another minute here just to have a little think about this for a second. Now, I want you to think about ways that you can better utilize your current skills in your professional role. So are there opportunities to apply your skills more effectively? Maybe there are some different projects that you can work on that are outside of what your normal job or your job description says. So I do think it's really important, in order to continue to build your career, to explore strategies to maximize the impact of your skills within your organization or your industry, because you want to ensure that they're fully leveraged so that you can achieve your career goals. And actually, I was talking to someone last night and they were sharing how they had done very well in their career in safety, and they were wondering what was next. So they actually took a sideways move and they learned a lot more and leveraged skills around project management. And actually, I've done something similar, not project management per se, but in one of the roles that I had, actually for 1 year out of my entire safety career, I didn't do safety work. I actually led a tech team. We were building software. It had absolutely nothing to do with safety at all. And I was leading a team that had software engineers, product managers, UX and UI designers, program managers, like this team of several hundred people where we were actually building software for a different area. And it taught me so much in terms of how teams operate, how different functions think about things differently. So yes, you can continue to build on your skills and experience in safety, but there is one thing to contemplate, which is also, is there an opportunity for you to maybe take a little bit of a left-hand turn and try something different to build some different skills? one of the things that I'm also seeing in the business context is that companies are looking for very well-rounded safety professionals who can do more than just talk about the topic of safety. So if you understand business context and if you understand how the organization works, you're adding more value to both your current role and then also potential career opportunities in the future. So just going back to our topic here and this fourth step of thinking about how to design your brilliant career. One thing I want you to do after you attend the session today is plan for future skill development by identifying areas where you want to grow and set some goals for that. So, some people enjoy setting goals. Some people enjoy just seeing what life throws at them. You do whatever works. But one thing that I've found is that by setting goals, you're able to sort of feel this sense of accomplishment when you achieve them. And yes, the goals can be something very specific, like attending a course, getting a qualification, achieving a certain level of competence. But I think the goals can also be perhaps on the softer side. So perhaps there's some work that you want to do around the way that you influence and engage with people. So, just think of it from multifaceted point of view, that it doesn't have to be all about the technical skills in safety. It actually can be about the softer skills as well. And then align your strategy of what you're going to do with those long-term career aspirations that you have. So some final thoughts, and then we can move into Q&A because we think we have a few minutes at the end, is listen, your future is in your hands and you should design it the way that you want to design it. But I really want you to remember to be bold, elevate others along the way, and drive the type of change that leaves a legacy. You need to step into your power. No one is going to hand it to you. So just remember that this is up to you, and no one is, there's this saying, no one is coming to save you. Maybe someone is coming to save you. But the way I like to think about career and how to design a brilliant future is that I'm in control of my career and my life, and I can make decisions and take actions that will impact what I get to do in my career, which makes it so joyful. So, as we close out this session today, if you'd like any more help, please feel free to contact me wherever. I'll let you know where you can contact me in a minute. You can join Design Your Brilliant Future. We have a program and a community, and it covers those 4 A's that we mentioned earlier in more detail. And it's totally there to support your transformation. When you understand yourself, it's just as important as understanding technical skills and experiences when you think about designing your career. And it just makes it so much more fun, so much more enjoyable when they're all aligned. So thank you for spending the last 43 minutes with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. But remember that this isn't the end. I'd love to keep the conversation ongoing. You can contact me through the channels here if you like. So you can email me, hello@megantranter.com, or at www.megantranter.com. But actually, if you really want to just have a chat to me, I'm really active on LinkedIn. You can always feel free to DM me there or set up a call with me through a Calendly link that I have. So in the couple of minutes left, if Scott and Jamie indulge us, I think we've got a few minutes left. Let us see if there's any questions or comments that you'd like to have a chat about to design your brilliant future.
Yeah, we have definitely a few minutes. There were lots of comments and hearts and thumbs up, and there were a few questions as well. One that got a lot of upvotes was, love the depth of conversation. How can a tenured safety professional continue to grow and learn and be viewed as a change leader while also standing out as a reliable contributor on a point of maturity, asking for a friend?
This is a great question. And actually, I think part of the underlying piece of this is also trust. How do your colleagues trust you as a safety professional and as a colleague? And when you are reliable and deliver on results and you're always there, that certainly is one of the ways to build trust with people. I think from a selfish perspective, I think what you have to think about is whether what you're doing now does light you up and whether there are some different things that you'd like to do. And listen, I'm not saying to anyone that you need to quit your job and, go become a YouTuber or something if that's what you like doing. But certainly there are different opportunities in most companies where you can put your hand up and say, hey, I'm really interested in this, or I have a point of view about this. I think I can add value to the company in these areas as well. And, earlier I was talking about business context. What I'm seeing is that the most valuable contributors at workplaces are people who don't just stay in their lane. You have to be very competent, obviously, in the lane that you're working in. But if you can add value to a company in different ways, whether it's by enhancing the culture of the company, and again, I'm not talking about safety culture. I'm just talking about being an overall good person. And, people like to be around you and you're really a net positive to the company, then often those other opportunities will come up as well.
All right, great answer. How much does calculated risk come into play as you chart your new adventure, and should it be a little uncomfortable?
Yeah, I think it should. And actually, with my coaching clients, we talk about this a lot lately, which is, and I've got to tell you, I've been coached many times, and I don't know how well I received the feedback, but taking risks, my opinion is that it's really hard to get traction and make a difference and build this brilliant career unless you take risks. And the thing you have to think about is, what's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, someone can make a comment about me. Someone can tell me no. Someone can reject me. But if I can stay neutral about those pieces of feedback, or actually take the feedback as something to get better, then it's not a negative thing. And you can actually take the feedback and then keep moving forward. Certainly, I think every individual has their own level of risk tolerance, whether it's an opinion of a family member or someone that's valuable to them, or maybe it's economic risk that can't be tolerated at a point in time. All of that is valid, and you do have to think about that. And sometimes there's ways of just making smaller adjustments and pivots that don't have to be this massive pivot at a point in time. And you can sort of track it out over a longer period of time.
Right. I think that's good advice. Any tips for an early career safety person?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say be really good at what you do. So, sometimes I experienced this, in my intro, I was mentioning how when I started work, I'm sure I looked like I was 15. I did. I looked like I was 15. I was 21. But as soon as I opened my mouth and began talking to people about the topic, they closed their mouth. And so one thing that I found, especially when you feel like you're not being taken seriously or there are other biases that people are bringing into a conversation, is that when you know your stuff really well, then often that makes people think differently about you. So I would be really strong on the technical part. But the other part I'd really think about is, how can you get more experiences so that you can bring empathy? And Scott, you mentioned this earlier, but how you can bring empathy into conversations and how you can look through someone else's eyes, or, walk in someone else's shoes. Because I think that as a safety professional, that's the best thing that we can do, is try and understand what others are going through, so that the programs that we work on and the initiatives and the culture that we're building with others can be appropriate and also able to be implemented well at a company. And then just one more thing. People talk a lot about mentors. I think mentors are good, but the biggest thing that helped my career was having a sponsor. And I didn't know it at the time, but a sponsor is someone who actually sort of has your back. You know, they're in the meetings that you're not in. They are giving you opportunities. They're opening doors for you. And I felt like my career really took off when I had a sponsor. And I didn't ask this person to be my sponsor, but for some reason they decided that that's what they would like to do through their actions. And it was one of the biggest game changers in accelerating my career.
Yeah, and I think it's good to ask for that kind of support as well.
Yeah.
If you were
Yeah.
fortunate enough to have somebody in your corner, but if you're not sure, ask.
Yeah. What's the worst thing that can happen? They can say no. That's the worst thing. And you're like, okay, cool. Thank you.
So we have a few more questions. We've got a few more minutes here. So how do you know whether you're good at self-assessment and maybe my personality perception and my qualities are inaccurate?
Oh, well, I think it depends which assessment you're doing. I think the better assessments are the ones that show you what your natural personality or assessment is, and then your adjusted one for different circumstances. And then what you can do with those then, I'm trying to think of the name of the one that I've done that. And maybe someone can put it in the chat if they remember which one it is. But what it does then is it shows you how you naturally behave and who you are naturally when you're by yourself. And then when you say in a work context or a different context, how you're having to behave differently. So perhaps the mismatch is between who you think you are and then how you're needing to behave at work, either because of the environment or the role you have or whatever. So I find that helpful. I also get feedback, and I think you should do the same. Get feedback from others, and you don't have to be the same at home and at work. It totally depends what the role is and what is expected of you, and but have that safe space at home as well.
I think you touched on it, and it was certainly my experience today, just going through the exercise again with you. I've been through numerous sort of self-assessments, but you're always learning. I think, you're it's not a destination, it's the journey, right? So if you're not sure you're being honest with yourself, just keep working at it, keep chipping away, and that self-evident truth will hopefully appear.
I love that.
Another good question, how would you recommend someone to be assertive or confident if they don't have a sponsor within their organization?
How can you be assertive or confident without a sponsor? So the sponsor is someone who, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but they are opening the doors for you, but you may not know. And it's normally in certain circumstances, and it's often in pivotal moments as well. They'll be the one who perhaps puts your hand up for a project to work on or suggests a promotion for you. So I think that's like a certain area, to think about. In terms of everyday confidence, I think that's part of us individually to work on. And you see people work on it differently. You probably hear a lot of conversations about imposter syndrome and what that really is. And I think there's just one thing I've learned over time is needing to do a lot of work on myself to build the confidence. I don't know that anyone else can build it for me. It's certainly lovely to have a supportive environment and for colleagues to appreciate you and to give you nice feedback and build you up. But at the end of the day, you're the one in this, busy, complex mind. And again, I'm not a psychologist, but you're the one, I think, who can do the work to work out what it takes for you to feel more confident. And by the way, it just takes time. I remember I've shared this story before. One of my biggest things that I'm happy with my own personal growth is being able to process feedback that, let's just say, I didn't agree upon or like, and how to process it faster and take it for what it was. You know, sometimes when I was early in my career, it would take me days or weeks or even more to get over feedback, you know, and I just ruminated about it and thought about it all the time. And maybe, you know, if you're listening here, maybe you feel the same way. I think the biggest gift and thing you can work on, if that's what your busy brain does, is trying to decrease the time that your brain thinks like that. And for me, that's been a huge game changer, is to be able to say thank you for feedback, to absorb it. Also, I mightn't agree with it sometimes. I can still say thank you. You know, that's someone else's opinion, and maybe it's right, but, you know, maybe it's the lens that they're bringing their feedback through as well.